Finally, good news for buyers. It's true, home buyers, you have finally some good news you're going to want to hear about. After 2 years of a scorching seller's market, recent sales data tells us that the housing market has finally begun to decelerate. This is a much needed break for the weary home buyers who have been battling it out over the past 2 years of an uber competitive market. So stick around to hear why a slowdown is welcome good news for home buyers. Hi, I'm Karen Torres, and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel, Move Me to Dallas, where we discuss living in the Dallas Metroplex, surrounding suburbs, and all that it has to offer. I was born and raised in North Texas and have been a realtor for over 10 years. So let's get started on helping you find and learn about the DFW market. So right off the bat, here's some good news. Home inventory is rising. The National Association of Realtors has data showing that inventory of homes for sale began rising in April of 22, with more than 237,000 additional homes on the market by June. More importantly, this number is expected to keep rising. The past 2 years were problematic for buyers due to the scarcity of homes for sale. As soon as a home went on the market, it was devoured within hours of being listed. So a rising inventory allows for some breathing room for the many buyers out there looking for a home. More homes equals less competition between buyers. In addition to rising inventory, sales are cooling. Earlier this month, the annual rate of new home sales fell 17% between March and April. It was also the lowest reading since April of 2020. And here's something that's making a comeback. Reports show that the number of homes with price reductions continue to rise while the share of homes getting multiple offers is decreasing. Now, for those of you who are questioning, yeah, that's great to hear, but now I'm worried about interest rates. Well, let's take a little walk down memory lane and see where they have been the past several decades. Going back to the 1970s, the average interest rate was 8.86%. In the 1980s, the average rate jumped to an eye-popping 12.7%. The 1990s resumed an 8% rate, with the average being 8.12%. In the 2000s, rates started dropping with an average rate of 6.29%. And then in the 2010s, we enjoyed the lowest numbers in recent history with the average rate of 4.07%. Which brings us to current day, where we are seeing interest rates ticking upwards, but still a modest average rate of 5.5%. So when we look at the big picture, you can see we are nowhere near where interest rates were back in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and even lower than the 2000s for that matter. So even at 5.5%, rates are still historically low. Okay, now here's another twist, and this is actually good news for both the buyers and sellers. Have you ever heard of a seller buy down? It's a win-win for both parties, so here's the scoop. The seller can offer to buy down the interest rate for the buyer, allowing the buyer to make a full price offer while locking in a lower interest rate. You may be asking, why would a seller want to do that? Well, remember at the beginning of this video, we discussed rising inventory and sales are cooling, which leads to price reductions. For sellers considering a price reduction, this could be an alternative strategy that helps their bottom line as well as the buyers. Let's look at an example of a home listed for $600,000. In one example, the seller has decided to reduce the price by $25,000, so it is now listed at $575,000. In the second example, the seller has offered to buy down the interest rate for the buyer from 5.75% to 5% while keeping the sales price at $600,000. Okay, now stay with me here because this is really good stuff. For you buyers, take a look at what that does for the buyer's monthly payment. The home buyer with the lower sales price of $575,000 with a 5.75% interest rate is paying more per month than the buyer who contracted for $600,000 at 5%. But sellers, check this out. Here is your benefit. The buy down allows the seller to net more at closing because they only had to spend $14,400 to buy down the interest rate for the buyer rather than the $25,000 price decrease. It truly is a win-win. Now, keep in mind, we are still in a seller's market, and DFW continues to be a competitive market as of July 2022. But there are changes in the air that should give buyers a renewed optimism that the current market deceleration will provide some relief for weary buyers who took a break from house shopping and may benefit from re entering the market now. Okay, next week I think I'm going to get out and do some neighborhood tours. So let me know in the comments if there is anywhere specifically that you would like for me to tour. And don't forget to subscribe so that you'll be the first to hear about my next video. I'd love to help you find your Texas nest.